Hi everyone, Angelo here, homeless filmmaker in Los Angeles. Been living in my car for a year, last 6 months in LA, before that about 6 months in Virginia. And I was thinking about how people leave Christianity, because I read a story, just a real short story. This woman posted about how she left, I think, a Baptist church, and I think she was 31 when she left, and she was fairly active in there. She liked to be, but she felt it was very judgmental and hypocritical, and they judged her sexual orientation. And I was thinking about, man, the way she talked about it, it resonated with how I left. Now, I left in different circumstances, but she was very connected to people there and stuff. I wasn't, and that was good for me. That made it easier, but I was always a loner, so it was hard for me to want, here's the thing about it, about being in church for me when I was younger, and I was taken basically to different churches. There was a Catholic school, so we went there, they had the church service every Friday, boring as shit. Greek Orthodox, boring as shit. And occasionally Methodist services, Methodist as well. So, but really it was mainly Greek Orthodox and Catholic, and like I said, boring as hell. And I just went. I didn't like going, but I also didn't have the courage to stand up for myself to say I shouldn't, because I thought, it makes me a bad person or something. So I never really had a day to relax, ever. In that 5 days a week going to school, Saturday had to take music lessons, which I didn't like. Sunday, church, doing homework, all this crap, always on me for anyways. And when I was younger, at least, playing sports. I stopped doing that after 7th grade. So I was never really connected to people in church, and I didn't care. And it's so funny how you can try and make Christianity work on someone, cram it on them to like a ill-fitting puzzle piece, but it just wouldn't take for me. No matter what, I had certain thoughts, a certain mentality that it just wouldn't take for. I had a certain, sort of dark thought in me, just none of this matters. It's all pointless. Not just religion, just kind of life itself. I thought my life didn't matter, and because of that, and because I didn't, really think I should ever stand up for myself or feel good about anything from when I was very young. I thought religion or Christianity, the point of it was to be miserable. I literally thought that it was to suffer, and I didn't oppose that. That's the thing. I thought, well, I'm supposed to, and I didn't like people who wanted to feel good, because I thought that was against Christianity. Now it's funny. Why, if God is so powerful and perfect, why is his supposed system he's created the world in so hard to teach to someone who is listening to it from a very young age, from 5 years old? And I don't know, I guess my parents took me to church even before that. I don't really remember now. But why would it not make sense to me if I really, was trying to do what I thought was right or something? And to me, that's the thing about Christianity. It's a moral vacuum. There is no right or wrong in it. It's do this or you will be punished with severe pain for a very long time. It's so funny how Christians say, oh, if you don't believe in God, how would you know right from wrong? Well, what are they saying with that? Are they saying that if you believe in God, you automatically adhere to these beliefs? No, you still have to choose them every day, just as if there was no God. And all they're saying is, if you do these things that violate this very powerful being's wishes, then you will be punished with a lot of pain for a very, very long time. That's it. And so why isn't any of that clear? And why do you have to sort of maintain this constant, reinvigorating your beliefs about this pain constantly to remind yourself of it? If you believe it, why don't you just believe it? And so through a lot of years of, just non-questioningly going through with it, although when I was younger, I admire my younger self's, ability to question. I remember I would watch documentaries on Buddhism and Hinduism, and kind of be scared, because I thought, well, if the point of religion is to suffer, and this seems like, you know, those like the Buddhist monks and like you know, the people who are really devoted to those religions, they go through a lot. They're meditating, they're by themselves. That's scary to me. As a kid, I just wanted to play video games and play baseball and stuff, and you know, watch wrestling. And so I'm like, well, that's pretty, how do I know that's not true if that's not the real, you know, punishment on yourself? So I would hear people occasionally talk about, oh, it's about a relationship with God, and I immediately dismissed that. So that's the funny thing. When I was a kid, I was really a deist. I thought, well, maybe God created it all, but obviously he's not still around, right, to do anything. I just thought of God as this, you know, blank, like a light bulb, just keeping running. That's it, but it didn't do anything. So why were they so bad at conveying this? Shouldn't it be so clear? You know, it's hard to be in denial of gravity. It's hard to be in denial of a lot of things that we're constantly, you know, referencing our behavior with. Yeah, some people, you know, they believe in flat earth, all that nonsense. So obviously that changes their view of gravity. But why wouldn't it be clear? And so I just went along with it. And as a result, it made me live this kind of like, you know, live in this kind of paralysis of indecision where nothing mattered. Because, well, God said what's right, and he makes it right, and I don't have to have any ambition. I don't have to achieve anything. Nothing. And that's on top of all the other influences that were around me that shaped everything. So I just had this dark view of life. And I was full of just, you know, I was just angry and lonely, and I just kept to myself. It's not that I took out my anger on others. I just kept to myself. Didn't want to get in trouble. I thought there's no point in living. Why? I didn't feel any urge to do anything, to like have any kind of strong desire. So that to me, I rationalized it as, I don't know, that's what the world is with God. So think about it. That's even bleaker than a world with no God. To think, well, your life was made pointless. You just have this mind that constantly refers you to this darkness and this bleakness about life. And God made it so. Huh? And anyway, so I struggled with it, and then in my teens, I sort of wanted to take it more seriously, and I just, all it did was just got baked into the darkness of how I view the world, of everything's wrong, basically. Nothing matters. I don't know how to describe what I believed. I don't think there's language to describe. You know, language is insufficient to describe everything. That's why I kind of just believe in just, you don't talk and you still can communicate. It was just a lonely, miserable experience. There's nothing redemptive about it. When we were, you know, I was trying to perform dutifully in my religious classes. I didn't really care. I mean, I thought I did. I remember one day in junior year of high school, where I had tried to indelibly link in my mind, okay, I'm a Christian, you know, I believe this stuff that makes me a good person, and I'm better, and all this horrific stuff, I thought, because of that. But I remember thinking one day I had this urge to just acknowledge like what it would be like if I was an atheist. I felt this allure to it, and I just sort of flipped it in my head for a second, and I was so terrified, and I was begging God forgiveness, and all this time it was never a possibility to me to just leave, to just stop this nonsense, this madness. So I ended up having what I didn't realize to be this amalgamation of beliefs that was formed from Christianity, from a lot of white supremacy, from conservatism, fascism, and that messed me up so much. It's just as far as my ability to relate to others, and ultimately my sense of like nothing really matters, or right or wrong. I had no interpersonal relations with anyone because I thought, why does it matter? God, there you go. So in a way, I was living truer than a lot of Christians, because I'm like, well, if nothing matters, why have ambition? And I remember feeling so horrible, liking anything, going to buy a book. I bought Bruce Campbell's book on a Sunday, and I felt bad, but I was so excited because I loved Bruce Campbell and the Evil Dead movies, and I bought his autobiography when I was 17, and I thought, oh, this is wrong to buy it on a Sunday? What the fuck does that have to do with being a good person? And I loved it. I was so excited when I read the book. But I was constantly trying to tamper down anything that felt good. And it was just a true belief in just the bleakness of the world. And so I didn't believe in building character or anything, nothing. So how could it be that Christianity, if it's so true and powerful, why would it leave someone so mangled and twisted as a person? Not only that, occasionally there are people who say, well, you were just trying to find the wrong God, which makes no sense. You're just making things up when you say that. Because if I was trying to find the wrong God, first of all, it's an intangible, made-up thing. So what does that mean? It's like saying, well, you ate the wrong type of mushroom, so you got sick. It's a physical thing. So it makes sense. You can point to it. With God, what? Oh, I was so stupid. I deliberately, in my mind, created a version of God that's hateful and stuff. No, it's just, I thought this is what a loving God is. And ultimately, it's just the more I learned about it when I had my mental illness, and I won't re-talk about all that. And ultimately, when I started having my severe mental illness at 17, and I won't go through that whole story again, but I was having severe delusions that God was ripping me out of my body, I tried to pursue this loving God and get, instruction from a teacher about it who told me all about, read about the saints, read prayers and stuff. Ultimately, that screwed me up so much worse. The only sort of good aspect to it was that it pushed me into the idea of I have to do something. Before that, I literally did nothing. So I had no idea how to deal with problems with people. And I just kept to myself, and I just kept myself walled off. So why would Christianity leave someone like this if it's ostensibly so powerful and wonderful? It's pathetic. I can't imagine what it takes to be a teacher and teach this and not tell kids, but by the way, here's the opposing views, and it's okay if you want to stop, you can stop. It's okay to take a way out. They really taught, no, you may not leave. You will be hurt and tortured forever. Think about it. Not even 1 billion years will be the beginning of your punishment. Not even 1 trillion years, not even 100 trillion years will be the beginning of your punishment. It will extend forever. It's so laughably false. And when I was younger, I really admired atheists too, because I liked the idea of someone who just claims their life for themselves. And it made me question the very existence of atheists. Made me question, well, how could God really be real if there are people who are really sure that he doesn't exist? And I always admired that about them. And as to sort of overcompensate, I had to sort of, put up this front against them even more. So, I had like a sort of friend or internet friend or two that were atheists, and I would try and argue with them. But it's funny, I had nothing I could say to them. When they asked me, why do I believe in God? One guy asked me that. I said, I just do. And I thought in my head it was like a moment in a movie where it's like I was saying, you just don't understand. It's more profound than what you have. I literally had nothing to justify my belief. I was in a bubble where we were totally insulated from real, like, understanding how you view the world when you don't just get indoctrinated into Christianity. It's not that I had no outside, sources of info, but in a way I didn't. It's not like it was, a severe cult or anything, but that it didn't need to be. That was enough. I just assumed, everywhere there's, Christians, and that's how everybody is. And I don't know when I first learned about even Islam, and I was just so ignorant for it. And the fact that I kept trying to graft it onto myself, it still affects me. This bleakness I have, this darkness of that, well, if something feels good, you're meant for, it doesn't, you're not supposed to do it, or I'm not supposed to. I don't know about others, but I'm like, well, then I'm going to hell for it. And I don't believe in hell. And I think about sometimes, if you even just look at the Bible, it's so laughably false. God made a book, and it's a crappy book, and it's been mistranslated so many times, and there's been additions even to what Jesus has said for hundreds of years, even 1,000 years. It's so laughably made up. It's so, has nothing to do with being a good person. You look at the history of the Bible, and before how it was constructed and stuff, and before Christianity, how other god myths were formed. so laughably false. And again, this idea that, oh, I went for the wrong God, well, that makes no sense, because how come there's lots of other Christians who don't have this problem? They just can't acknowledge that it's a mental illness that I had, and it does negatively affect a lot of people, and it's not real too. You got to come to grips with the fact that Christianity is not real. There is no God. Jesus was not God. I don't know if there was ever even a person who Jesus was based on. Could have been all made up, just like Zeus and, you know, Apollo and Hades. Yeah, all those characters. You look at how many religions of the world have devils. And here's another hypocritical thing about Christianity. Why do they say... Now, a lot of Christians don't respect other religions, but why are there Christians like the Pope who says, don't blaspheme against other religions? Or they say religious belief is good for you. Well, then you're acknowledging that religious belief, even if it's other religions, can be false and still beneficial. So why are you even claiming anything in defense of another religion if you think they're in violation of the truth and your God? Why would you even say don't blaspheme another religion, but then you're upholding their false God, right? If you're saying don't blaspheme against a false religion, so you're just putting your faith in people, not in God, because you believe people should have their beliefs respected and not God. Fix my hair. But if you really believe in your version of God, then there should be no reason for you to say that. And sure enough, a lot of Christians are like that. Well, they will just disrespect other religions and burn their other holy books and insult their believers, their adherents, and call for their oppression. So now, finally, getting to how I left. Well, I went through I won't go through the whole story now, but 18 months of just terror, just pure terror. It was excruciating. For the first time in my life, I thought, okay, I'll get to live my life. I'm going to start to choose to enjoy my life. And I had a panic attack, and then I felt like God was ripping me out of my body to be with him. And so that's the thing. You can say, oh, well, you believed in the wrong God. You should believe in a God of love. That's what I believed, that God wanted me so much that he was going to destroy me to take me with him, and he would not be happy until he got every single bit of my identity decimated. So really, I was going to be the one who has to give everything, even my own free will, if there is such a thing as free will, in order to be with God. And this life is wrong, because if I'm supposed to be with God, why should I remain in this life? It's not that I was going to kill myself, though I wanted to. It's that I thought I just shouldn't live. It's wrong. This world is corrupt. I am not being with God at every moment, no matter what I did. It was horrific. It was horrifying pain. It was so searing, like I was losing the ability to relate to others, as little ability I had, but to comprehend emotions around me, to feel emotions. It was just horrific. In a way, it was much worse than the other two bouts of illness that I had that lasted for about a year each. One a year and then another one 9 months, because it was so intense. I can't describe it. I cannot convey it. I was delusional, hallucinating, and worst of all, I believed, I have to keep adhering to this religion because it's good, it's right, and I never thought there was a way out. Now, I wonder if I had tried to leave earlier, would it have taken, and would this still have a grip on me? It still would have. So I kept with it for 18 months, and eventually it started turning on me to where it's like my mind was rejecting this because it was so painful, so searingly painful. And I would even see other Christians talk about things like, how good Christianity is for them. And I think, what hypocrites? You're doing it because it's good. So why would God even abandon me to feel this, to leave this to me, these thoughts, if Christianity is real? And no matter how much I desperately tried, I could not be well. And I remember seeing this one segment of this singer. She was a Christian singer, and she was on Sean Hannity. And that was sort of a little turning point for me. And I was a big fan of Sean Hannity. I actually met him when I was in college. I skipped class to meet him. That's how deformed my personality was. I bought into this fascist. But again, Christians, they don't put their faith in God. They put their faith in themselves, in people. And it's so chauvinistic, and not just Christians. It's kind of a lot of religions, especially, when you can say, oh, I'm not conveying, it's not me saying this. Here's the wisdom from this holy book I'm giving to you. I actually have this secret source of information that you don't have, and it's not me. So it really is you, but at the same time, you're being a masochist, you're lowering yourself and saying, well, look, it's from this other thing, and it very much, and at the same time, you're exalting yourself, saying, I have this perfect info. The world was created for me. Too bad for you and your terror. So I was going through this, and that Sean Hannity show, I remember, that was sort of like opened my eyes a little bit. Seeing this and thinking, and also feeling, just being ripped out. It was so, I can't explain it. Feeling like I'm being ripped away from every moment to where I couldn't even enjoy TV, enjoy movies, enjoy video games, and relate to others. I couldn't feel any. It was so horrific and relentless terror. And I was going through it all by myself. Anyways, this woman said how, she's waiting for true love, and God has someone special for her, and she's keeping her virginity. And Sean Hannity was commending her, and I was thinking, what hypocrites! If you really want to be with God, you would go through the terror I'm going through. Why are you waiting for anything to feel good? These pleasures of the flesh. And that really kind of turned me a little bit, that moment. There were a lot of other things that kind of pointed me in that direction too. I had a socialist teacher. It's funny, I bitterly opposed him in class in college, but it left a mark on me. Hearing his stuff he was talking about. Now, of course, I couldn't be more turned around and be like, yeah, right on. But talking about the hypocrisy of the U.S. empire and Christianity and stuff, and there were some things I knew already that he was talking about with that too. And just how propaganda works. I remember he showed us a video of the duck and cover nuclear bomb propaganda videos saying if nuclear bomb strikes, duck and cover. And it made me so mad to watch it. And I had never been confronted with something like that. I didn't know why it made me so mad. I don't know if I was mad at the video itself or I was mad, but I didn't recognize it as fascist propaganda. I didn't quite know. It just made me so mad. Just this bombastic, lie in a way, but this idea that embedded in the video it's like a civic duty to be a proud American or something. I don't know. I never bought into that stuff, that love it or leave it too, even when I was a conservative. Thank goodness. That's one thing I could never really buy into. I just didn't feel strongly about it. I thought in my head, I'm like, well, if they don't, if they criticize America, they're obviously trying to make it better. But anyways, so that woman on Sean Hannity, it really it put something in me. It wasn't a huge thing at the time. And there were other things, just watching movies and stuff, feeling like this bitter pain, like, why can't I just experience normal emotions like what are in this movie? I remember watching Rumble in the Bronx and being terrified at one moment because I was feeling like, oh no, I'm worshiping this movie by watching it. So all you Christians, know that you're worshiping media. You're worshiping graven images. You're in denial about your faith. You worship yourselves. You're really Satanists. Satanists worship themselves. They're just honest about it. I'm not a Satanist, by the way. Those experiences, it kind of started darkening me. And then I started retreating and started withdrawing from the church out of self-defense, meaning I wasn't trying to be active in prayer and stuff. I was scared of going to religious events because I knew it would inflame my terror and panic. And it started darkening my view of the world. Like, why am I engaged in this abusive system? Nobody's doing it to me. But engaged in this thing that's been crafted to basically put people like me who take it really seriously and have mental illness into constant self-abuse. And so I was desperate for anything to feel good. And the fact that I was retreating, pulling back from religion, it was like a little premonition. But I still, even if I just left at that point, this still would have had a spell on me. It was truly horrific. I'm almost grateful for the pain in a way because I can know how much relief there can be after you feel that much pain. I just felt this darkness creeping in. And again, during this whole point, I was not getting mental health assistance. I was not really learning anything about how Christianity's false. I was just going through my experiences. And I was feeling this cynicism, this, well, you're all hypocrites. This feeling of, you're hypocrites. You want your life to feel good. You want a convenient life. And maybe you pray for an hour or two a week and go to church, and that's it. That's the ultimate sacrifice to this God who gave his life for you. And it didn't make sense, any of it, and it couldn't take after a while. So eventually what happened one night, I don't know, it was almost like I was hypnotized. I put on Panic Room on DVD to watch it, even though I was in such searing pain. And in one moment in Panic Room, it's like a tunnel opened in me. I felt shot through the other side. And I felt in that moment I had saved my life. And I could sit there and finish watching Panic Room where I'm like, I'm not going to do this anymore. I just realized finally I will not do this. And I was like, finally, I can acknowledge that I'm an atheist. I went to church one more time just out of obligation. I was so glad to be there and be like, means nothing to me. I was so glad. I was smiling for the next few days. Now, I wasn't really happy in a way because it's still, man, to go through that, you don't just recover all at once. And it was another year and a half before I started realizing all the other problems that were in my mind from all these experiences. But going back to leaving the church, okay, it scared me not to go. It hurt me. I was still interning at a public access TV station. I wanted a job at a movie theater. So after a few weeks, I didn't know what to do. I remember literally thinking, waking up the next morning thinking, what do I do now? I'm not the same person I was the last 18 years. This was just before I turned 19. Like days before it. I couldn't believe it. I was so stunned. I was like, wow, I don't know what I am anymore. And I was hoping that I could just be rid of the religious delusion. I still wish for that. It still hurts me. It still is grafted onto me. And it interferes with my ability to just feel things. And over the next few days, I was scared. I was literally like, I don't know what to do now. I was slowly trying to build a life again. The only thing I knew to do was watch movies. I applied for a job at a movie theater, and I was so scared because I thought, oh, God won't let me get a job at a movie theater because now I've abandoned his plan and this is not what he wants for me. I was literally scared, just I would not be able to ever have a job. And I got the job and started working there, and it was only a few weeks before I started feeling this horrible fear that, like, oh, the devil was coming out, and the devil was, God had not, I wasn't just an atheist now, but God had abandoned me to the devil, and the devil was there to possess me. It was terrifying for months. I was very glad to feel that over the Christian stuff. I will take it 1,000 times over, feeling like the devil's going to possess me over feeling God wants to essentially destroy me or completely swallow me up and take me just for him. Much rather. Because at least with the devil, that feeling, I could sort of be myself and relearn to be myself. It was scary. I had to watch movies to sort of re-jolt my emotions alive again. And it was very painful, and it was grief-filled, and I had no idea what other problems I had mentally. And it was very lonely, and this feeling of the devil, it was terrifying. And I was having other delusions, like I was seeing symbols of the devil in my hands, pentagrams, or if I saw a sharp object, I was afraid I would have to use it to kill myself because I was so evil. It was truly terrifying. And so I just wanted to avoid anyone because I was scared that, and I had this compulsive, like, the word Satan and Hail Satan and stuff were coming out of me in my head. And when I heard or felt that word in myself, it was like a shiver of this horrible power in me. And that lasted for like 3 years. But during this time, I was scared that I was a bad person. I was scared I was evil. I would still sort of beg God to help me sometimes, but knew God had abandoned me. It was just horrific, but it was the only way I could save my life. So that kind of is, is mixed into my view of, if you try and do good, you're still doing bad. I was only saving my life by killing off this thing that was supposedly good in me, even though I didn't believe it's good. So, the horror and horrific nature of that was mixed in with leaving it into another horror to save myself. So there is no good choice. So no matter what, it's like I'm damned in a way. I have that bleakness, this bleak view of things. But I'm grateful for it in a way too, because somehow I can handle it. And, it gives me my perspective on things. And, I don't know. It's somehow in some way it's like, well, I can handle it if another person couldn't. So it's just very dark. It created a very bleak look on life, and that'll never change for me, I don't think. Because no matter how good something is, think about it. It's an evil in a way. Not that I believe that, but it's still something about it. It's so embedded in me. It's so granular and like in my DNA, I can't get rid of it. It's always there, sort of embedded into everything I see, that if you're trying for something good, no matter what, you're doing it because you escaped with the help of evil. There's no language for me to explain it. That's just what life is. But now, of course, I can see there's no God. It's so nonsense, so ridiculous. And I'm glad to share this story, glad to tell people it's okay to leave that church. It's okay if you're a kid and you question whether this is right or not. It doesn't make you a bad person. I cannot fathom how a teacher can tell kids about this stuff, and how you can have a conscience and tell them this stuff like they have to believe it. I cannot fathom that. How you can lie to kids. They don't think they're lying, but here's the thing. I don't understand how you can be an adult and think that. It's so narcissistic. It's the total opposite of what they say. Oh, I'm but a humble servant. I'm a poor sinner. It is the total opposite. It is, I have this ironclad infinite truth to bring to you, and you must obey it. So it's really worshiping yourself. It's like Christopher Hitchens said, not to be too, he had a lot of, I think, bad views, particularly about the Iraq War and war on religion. But, he's sort of liked by a lot of, the very fascistic, bigoted people who adhere to, transphobia, Islamophobia, all that kind of stuff. He said, it's like the nun running through a crowd and pushing people out of the way and say, out of the way, I'm on a mission from God. Like, it's not my fault I'm pushing you out of the way, but it's all about her power to push people out of the way and say, no, it's God. God did it. What the hell was I talking about? So the months after I left Christianity, I kept to myself and I was in still such pain over other things. I was really hurt, but a lot of things, struggling to cope, desperately hurt. No idea about mental health. And also, at this point, I never thought I'd have much of a life. I thought all I'll do is work my way up through this corporation I was working at, Regal Cinemas, and eventually I'll make enough money and somehow I'll work my way into being a filmmaker from that, a director. Just a totally, deformed person. I had no real experience interacting with people, like on any significant level. Yeah, superficially I would interact with them. And religion is kind of what binded all that together and made it possible. Because it's like, well, God made the world the way it is. There's nothing to strive for, nothing to achieve. Combined with my just naturally bleak view of things. I don't know why. Just when I was a kid, I had this affinity for darkness and the devil and destruction. Not doing it myself, but seen it in movies. And I remember even thinking as a kid I had this strong sense of right and wrong in a way, but I knew something about what I was going through was evil. So it was weird thinking like I'm complicit in this evil because of that, even as a young 4 or 5 year old. So the months after I left Christianity, I didn't tell anyone. I was very scared to tell anyone. Oh man, it was tough. People still thought I was a Christian for like a year, over a year afterward. They were stunned when I told them I wasn't. When people I knew, I told I wasn't. And I didn't tell anyone in my family for over a year, like a year and a half. And even then, I couldn't bring myself to say I was an atheist. I just said I'm not a religionist. Like, I do not adhere to religion. My dad was mad. My brother made fun of me. My mom really didn't like it. I don't know if I told her then or not. I really didn't talk to her much in college. What else was I going to say? Oh, yeah. I also was fearing that I was becoming a bad person. Like, I was getting scared when I would watch shows and just the thought would come in my head like abortion's okay and, you know, homosexuality is fine. And I would be so scared, like, no, even though I'm not religious anymore, I'd have to hold on to my morals. And so it still stunted me because I was afraid I was this evil person, because I thought, to me, if you indulge these things that feel good, how do you distinguish between any type of goodness and indulging your feelings for bad, for domination, for cruelty, for hurting others? And so I just didn't want to indulge anything that felt good. I also was just in despair and didn't realize it, because not only I thought, well, my life is forfeit, it means nothing, I held no hope for anything. In the months after when I left Christianity, I also thought, well, God doesn't want me to be with a woman, so there's no woman I can ever be with. I didn't even care. It's funny. If you would think that to yourself at a young age, that's a pretty horrifying thought. But I thought, well, I'm not supposed to be, so it doesn't matter. God abandoned me. I didn't care at all. I really didn't care. It didn't bother me. That bothers a lot of people, you know, when they think, oh, why aren't I married, or why don't I have kids, or why don't I have a wife or boyfriend or anything. It didn't even enter my mind as a possibility. I had already seen the fucking bleakest view inside my own mind of the world. It meant nothing. I didn't care. I didn't think I had it in me to like a woman. I had never really had any real encouragement before that. Never really heard anything good about me. And again, didn't matter. I was like, well, I never thought to complain about anything. Never thought to talk about anything that bothered me. It was only another 8 months or so before I was just, no, more like almost a year, later, that I started going to counseling, because I was like, I couldn't function. I was in such despair, and something else had happened that was very disturbing, and I was severely just upset and disturbed by that, and it kept inflaming all these feelings in me. And I choose to forget about those years from 2006 to 2007. I just choose to forget about my experiences then, because it was so terrorizing, and I hated myself. I was convinced everyone hated me. All from Christianity, stemming from those bleak experiences and never having any proper education. So, you know, I look at school as one big fucking empty hole that was just a moral vacuum. I didn't really learn right and wrong from that. To me, my sense of right and wrong was, you know, instilled from myself, and I had to build it and reform it. And then on top of that, oh, that's interesting. I said reform, but it also works for reform. Like reformed. I had to reform myself and learn how to, I had to force myself to learn how to feel anything, to learn how to care about people. It was bitterly painful. It's always a struggle. There's always a part of me that wants to withdraw. It was horrific. And so I was scared. The short of it is, nobody even had to put the screws in to pressure me openly about it, to stay in Christianity. The pressure was all there. It was like this fog that's around me. You don't notice it when it's up close. You notice it when you stand back from it and you can see a cloud. But I didn't notice it all around me. It wasn't until growing up, like I remember even working at the movie theater thinking, where's the religion? There's no, like I thought Christianity was all encompassing everywhere, just like there was a diocese for the church. I thought everywhere someone was in a parish or a diocese. I didn't realize, no, it's not, the world is not under the dominion of Christianity. I mean, world history sort of has been of Christians, but not of, you know, that's not how the world works. And seeing that kind of, and even before that, I should back up, just being in college and being somewhere where I'm left to interact with people and sort of struggle and stuff, that sort of, you know, opened my eyes as to like, oh, Christianity is not here. And it was a Catholic school, but still it was like, oh, it's dark bleakening, this dimming my view of Christianity and making me look down on it like, this isn't how the world works. I can just see around me, like, the world works without it. And I was in despair for a long time, grief about the loss of my belief in God that had formed me as a person, even though I couldn't really say I ever really believed in it. It was just always there in the background as sort of radiation, like this is just how I cope with reality. Not that it comforted me, not that it gave me any solace whatsoever, but just it was always there, and that's how I rationalized the world. And so I was in despair and a deep depression for a long time. It's only been in the last few years where I feel comfortable with that. I'm glad. I'm like, no, it's not an emptiness. But before, if someone was depressed and they were an atheist, I'm like, yeah, of course you're depressed. You're an atheist. That's an emptiness. I didn't understand how people didn't feel despair, but when they were atheists. But of course, again, I had that 19 years of that indelible experience, deeply embedded in me. So I was in despair for a long time, and it felt horrible, and it felt like I'm not supposed to live, and again, like I'm not supposed to have any kind of life, and I've always got to take this dark hidden path of just being inconsequential, not existing, and that's always sort of the path I'm on, and the path you are on with me. That's my satanic statement of the day. But yeah, it was brutal. It was just horrific. That's something I would never want to go through again. Even my 9 months of disability, in a way, it wasn't as worse as those first 18 months, because at least I was older and had more experience and sort of knew this was wrong, even though it was horrific too. It was too painful. There were certain days I couldn't even turn on the computer to check my email because it would have been physically excruciating to press the power button on my computer. So I assumed I would never get better. I thought for sure, well, that's it. I had a nice little run, and this is going to be the rest of my life. I'm going to grow old, be chronically sick, watch people die around me, be unable to take care of myself, and I'll die myself. So thank Christianity for that. Make sure you thank a Christian for helping brainwash people. And I don't respect Christian beliefs. It is so narcissistic and chauvinistic to believe them, and even to not be of the conservative fascist mentality, to be of a progressive mentality, ideology, a progressive belief, even to be of progressive views of saying, okay, gay people should have equal rights and are totally valid, their sexuality and their existence. Same with whatever. Same with immigrants. Same with all LGBTQ people. All different. Same with other religions. I can't respect their views in a way because it's so narcissistic. Like, oh, I don't suffer, but you had to. You had to go through it, but it's good for me that I didn't, so I'll adhere to it. Well, if you know your belief system can cause such terror, how can you believe it? So when I left Christianity, it's not that I had any scientific belief that, religion was invalid. For me, it was a personal thing. In much the same way Christians will often say, I had a personal experience, a revelation or whatever. For me, I had a personal testimony, which is, how could God make someone so unwell, so insane, and so sick that they couldn't be near him? And so that was my proof against God. Just like Christians, really, you are your own proof for God. Your own existence, your chauvinism. You're saying, well, God favored me. God gave me peace or whatever. Me, I'm my own proof against God. God couldn't make someone so sick and insane that they couldn't be near him. Years and years later, it was only when I started more learning about the other reasons. But for me, my reason it's both. But I have the strong personal reasons against believing in Christianity, in addition to, the fact that it's clearly nonsense. It is clearly made by, a tribe, and mostly men, and, there was a small group, and it was just people. You'll read the book and like, this is obviously written by a person. It's not written by God. So a terrifying experience, horrific experience. I'm glad for it in a way, but to me, there's no, just glad. Everything is, the terror and misery and darkness is mixed in with any goodness. And so goodness is all evil in a way to me. And it's why I always have this bleak view of things and bleak view of myself as well. But I'm glad for it. To me, in a way, it's empowering. It's like, that's what propels my view of the world. I don't know any other way of looking at the world. And I'm glad to talk about it. I'm glad to say, don't think you're trapped in this thing. If you want to get out, do what, I don't urge people just leave, if you don't want to, but do it if you want to, or look into it. There's nothing harmful about it. And my mind was so tripped up on thinking, oh, this is going to cause me to go to hell. This is going to make me be evil. I'm going to be punished in this life, really. I wasn't worried about hell so much, but I was worried in this life I'll be evil. And I was worried about which behaviors will cause me to go to hell. Amazing how a God would create a system so screwed up that someone would have to be so worried at any given moment, oh, I'm going to do something evil, to where it was the very fiber of my being. My own thoughts are going to make me go to hell. Oh, if I feel anything at all, if I enjoy my life whatsoever, if I'm in my mind, not even enjoy things like an external event, just if I'm capable of processing my own thoughts and emotions, I will go to hell. So I must be obliterated so I can be washed away into heaven. So that's why I say it's not true that, I wasn't looking for a loving God. I was. And that was the ultimate in a loving God, one that wants to obliterate you to be with him because he doesn't want you to be away from him. I was at the point where I was really losing my free will. I was fearing I would literally go entirely insane and I would not be able to choose anything for myself. And I could not feel anything. It's like my parents were 1,000,000 miles away and every experience on earth was 1,000,000 miles away, and I would literally lose my free will and just be this like automaton that was going to be forced to eradicate my own identity to be closer to God. So that's why I think I have contempt for Christians who maintain their beliefs, adults, and be like, oh yeah, I'm a progressive. I hold progressive values, yet you adhere to a system that at the very least, has caused torture to one person, let alone many other people, in many different ways, and has been the reason Christians have inflicted torture on others. Oh, God permits it. And it's so chauvinistic and delusional. How fucking selfish and delusional can you be to believe in that when it's obviously false? You're like, no, I believe it. It comforts me. I have this powerful belief. And yet you live your life like a Satanist, living for yourself, enjoying your life, enjoying earthly pleasures, sex, food, movies, watching the news, traveling to events, having friendship. Good for you that it didn't destroy your life. Try experiencing what I did. I know you can't just do it just by wanting to, but try experiencing what I did and wanting to be a Christian. Then you too would say you have to save your life. That's the thing. I cannot comprehend how you've never had to experience that. So you can't really claim, that Christianity is true. Because you didn't really experience Christianity, the obliteration of self for God. Try doing that. Oh, you wouldn't want to. Try acknowledging it. Oh, you don't want to. So you're unwilling to go through everything for God. And I was forced to, and I was unwilling to go through it. And I still dealing with it and going through it. And eventually I do want to get a course on depersonalization and derealization that's available online from the Anxiety Ninja, Jordan Hardgrave, because that may be what I have. I'm willing to try it. It's a $100 course, at least as of right now. I want to see, but I don't know. I kind of doubt it'll work. I don't think so. I'm willing to try it because this stuff is ingrained so deep in me. It's like, I was wondering when I was in the depth of my mental illness at 17 and 18, while other people were getting to live their lives and I was just in pure terror, I remember thinking that panic attack that tore something open in me, I literally felt like there's something physical in my brain that I wish I could just have surgery and remove. I felt split in half. I was starting to feel these delusions of being in this spirit world, in this other world. And yet I was still a physical body. And I just wished I could cut out this part of my brain. And even for years afterward, I wish I could do that. I felt this split in half. So how can you be a Christian and know that Christianity does this to someone? All you can say is, well, it's good for me that it didn't happen to me, but it's too bad for you. In other words, the world looks exactly how it would look if there was no God.